Hey, Justin, just wanted to get back to you about your problem with your camera. So after going through and talking with my camera guy, just a little bit of a rundown on what could be the problem. I mean, you're going to send it in anyways, and they're going to tell you what the issue is. But anyways, just as a review of how shutter works, like this is the same issues with all shutters really, but probably most comparable to the Context because of the metal blades on the shutter. There's two actions going on. There's one action where there's the first shutter curtain that's being drawn, and then the shutter speed time that lags, and then the follow-up of the second shutter curtain. So like as my diagram here is showing you, the shutter is depressed, electric current is being drawn and being charged into the first solenoid, which then releases the first shutter curtain. And at the same time, based on the shutter speed itself, the second solenoid will charge, and then after a delay release the second shutter curtain to follow across the frame. And it's in your video, it's an up motion, and that's supposed to create a gap where the light exposes the negative, right? So there's the shutter delay right there, and the faster the shutter speed, the less prominent that you're going to see that gap. If it's like at 1,000th of a second, you almost see like two shutter curtains follow up together with a tiny little slit. And if it's say like 1 second, you're going to see a prominent first shutter curtain release first, and then a delay where the entire shutter frame is going to be exposed, where there's a large gap, and then the follow-up with the second shutter curtain. So basically in your video, it's showing that they're just both following up at the same time. There's no gap, which means that the second solenoid could also be a problem where it's not receiving a full charge, and it's not appropriately signaling that there's supposed to be a delay. So sometimes your shutter curtains could be totally fine, and it's just simply just the electronics and the circuitry between the two shutters to complete that cycle. And sometimes it could just be a total dead shutter itself. And I wouldn't imagine that's the case because the shutters are moving the way they're supposed to. So the circuitry, to me, just seems to be the problem where one has kind of faded out. The big problem that you should try to backtrack and see what happened in the previous rolls that were okay, or at least leading up to this problem. Were you shooting in any condition where there was, adverse conditions to where you normally shoot? Were you exposed to more heat or cold than you normally were? How long has it been since the cameras had a CLA? And most notably, if there was a solenoid problem, you'll start to notice that, let's say that you're normally shooting at like 1/60th of a second. Before you got like all blank negatives, your negative should have been progressively getting more underexposed because the shutter curtain's basically not following what you're telling it to do. It's either going to give you more heavily exposed or severely underexposed images leading up to this. So just track back to the rolls that you got back from the lab to see whether or not you had more exposure problems than you normally do. And that should tell you that probably it's a progressive issue with the solenoid rather than the shutter just being like totally dead. So hopefully that helps. Anyways, yeah, just PM me if you have any questions. Okay.